because he has arrived in the building. All right, the DOC, the publisher of Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, a legend in the Detroit sports community. The one, the only, the DOC. Doc, how we doing?
Fellas, what's good? It's Wednesday. We will speak one more time before the Detroit Lions take the field for training camp. It's ever so close. The end of the month, the Detroit Lions are going to take the field. Pro Football Hall of Fame game. It's right there. It's a great time. Jeff, just listening to the show over the last hour, I don't know. It feels like something's up. My psychological spidey senses, something's telling me. I don't know if you shed some dead weight. You seem so much happier. You seem less tied down. I'm not sure what it is, but you seem like a much happier guy. Tanning. It looks like you've been enjoying life a little bit better. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm liking this version.
You got a haircut, Doc. You got a haircut today.
Got a haircut?
That is the dead weight, Doc. I mean, the boy, we're looking good today. All right. We're looking good today, Doc. We're ready to be great today. And Doc, I got to ask you to start off here. All right. Since you're very good at the, what do you call it? The psychological analysis. Can you analyze the brain of Adam Rank and what the hell this dude's smoking and how I can get some of it? Because he had the Lions going 8-9. I know you picked him apart on your on Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, and you brought up his pass records, which is even more funny and stupid because the guy had them 10-7 last year. They won 15 games. Every year he picks the Lions to win a certain amount of games. They overexceed that. And maybe this isn't just about Adam Rank, but the people that are this slow on the Lions because of their schedule. Can you see a world, Doc, where they go 8-9 and miss the playoffs? Is that what's going on with Adam Rank here, Doc?
Yeah, no, look, I just see a Bears fan that knows that every time he makes a Lions prediction, he's going to get a whole section of Lions fans. I do think he's trolling. There's no way you look at how the Lions are built offensively and realistically put them at 8 wins. Now, look, I know you can, if you ever get him on, if someone will text Booner back, then I do think that he'll give up all the lazy narratives of, oh, there's 2 new coordinators, the schedule's tough and stuff that it makes you wonder, okay, as a Chicago Bears fan, why is he doubting the Detroit Lions when he's had a good firsthand look at what the Lions have been able to do to the Bears each and every year? Look, it's great. And I do love the outside noise that people have really looked at with the Detroit Lions. They don't want to believe in Jared Goff. They don't want to believe in Dan Campbell as a head coach. They want to revert back to the idea that the Detroit Lions are this franchise that can't win. In the end, locally, we all know. Everybody in the chat, everybody watching knows. Right now, for the Detroit Lions, it's about one thing and one thing only that Jared Goff said early on in the quarterback series. It's one thing now. Now we're at that level, which is great. All that outside noise, predictions is great to talk about in the offseason, but it's now you're in the land of Super Bowl or bust, and that's a great thing. Guys like Adam Rank are really irrelevant. He's a Bears fan. Those guys are lower than low. He's got to sit there and watch awful football for the last year. So probably I would say Adam Rank is a grumpy, crotchety football fan, and he's got to make himself feel better by going on TV. And two, he's also a professional wrestling fan. So he knows how to rile it up. But what he's putting on television is complete BS, and he knows it. We all know it. It's funny. Clearly, he's not good at making predictions, and everybody should tell him that, hey, hopefully the Bears don't embarrass the city like they have been for the last decade.
Hey, Doc, something that's been going around the last few days came out yesterday or 2 days ago, I believe. The quarterback series from Netflix, and Jared Goff obviously was on it. I had something came across my desk of you kind of saying a few bad things about Jared Goff as well over the last couple of days. Can I ask you your thoughts on it? I know you watched, I saw you tweeting about it. Your thoughts on the quarterback show. Do you think it changed the perception a little bit? That was a conversation we had about that it might change the perception for some people in regards to Jared Goff. I know you're in the building, so you get to see that side mostly, but for at least the fan base and the people, national media and in the NFL, they don't get to see that all the time. Do you think they showed that in that series, and how do you think it went for them?
Yeah, I watched every single minute. First day came out. I was just excited to see it. I like in-depth features. I like the way that these docuseries showcase quarterbacks, showcase the wide receivers last year. And, selfishly, I wanted to see if I was in it, clearly. But no, I was not in it. But It was, look, to the point about the negative things about Jared Goff, I am in the camp of, look, his last performance was god awful. You pay a guy $50 million not to perform like that. And I'm a doubter. I'm of the opinion that Jared Goff is, a quarterback that can get you only so far. And it's not a disrespect to the man. The man is clearly, and I've said it before, one of the best quarterbacks that the Lions have ever had. But I don't compare him to Scott Mitchell. I compare Jared Goff to the greats of the game. Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, quarterbacks like Josh Allen now, Lamar Jackson. How do you look amongst the best of the best? And I just think that at this point in time, and I also come from a defensive mindset, and I just believe that a quarterback, it's so tough to stand tall and be the number one best team. It's nothing new. I'm still a Detroit Lions fan, but I'm somebody that clearly every year going into it would be shocked if the Detroit Lions stood tall at the end of the year winning the Lombardi Trophy. I would be shocked. And similarly with Jared Goff, I'm of the opinion he's a great quarterback, former number one overall pick. Clearly, he can win a lot of games. Clearly. But I just have those doubts whether he can stand tall and lead an NFL team to the promised land. Because not only is it a limitation, do I believe it's a limitation about Jared Goff, I just think it's unbelievably tough with how great these other teams are in the AFC, how great defenses. You have an Eagles team that has a young defensive line. You have a Chiefs team that has one of the all-world best quarterbacks that's like an assassin. And so I don't think it's a great insult to say I have doubts. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if Jared Goff one day won a Super Bowl. I think that the Lions are trying to build as great a football team as humanly possible. But I just think football has evolved to where when you see the rankings you just did, some of those great defensive ends are going to wreck quarterbacks. And clearly the last game I just watched that counted, I just saw a team that didn't need to blitz to get to Patrick Mahomes. They didn't need to blitz. And a great defensive line, defense wins championships. I think that would happen to Jared Goff and even worse. As bad a game as Patrick Mahomes had, I think that's what it would look like if the Eagles were to play the Detroit Lions in a championship game at this point. And you got a young offensive line, so you need some mobility, in my humble opinion. But it doesn't go to, that's just my doubt side. That's the side of the guy that's been a 45-year Lions fan that's seen all the horrific things. But I'm proud that they're a winning team. I'm proud that they're in now the conversation to be able to win a lot of games. And the series, I thought, highlighted some things that were great. I thought there was a little bit too much Kristen Harper. I'm clearly, I know what she brings to the table as, somebody that supports Jared Goff. But for me, I reviewed it on the latest Lone Wolves podcast. I wanted to see more of the dynamic between Goff and Ben Johnson, Goff and Dan Campbell. Goff only has dinner with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I wanted to see him have dinner and hang out and cookouts with J-Mo. Goff is buttoned up. He's corporate. I wanted to see basically the Jared Goff show, and I wanted to see a lot more than they showcased. But I thought it was great that they highlighted a little bit of his competitiveness. He talks a lot of shit to opponents, which I like. And I just think he's a competitive guy, but it's not out of the realm of possibility to say, man, can he lead this Lions team to a Super Bowl? It's just, I have doubts. And that's just the way it's always going to be until I see it.
I've interrupted the video to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Comer & Cross, and their one-day installation for concrete floor coatings, garages, basements, patios. They do it all. And I'm sure you're tired of staring at your crack-stained garage floor. Well, I have the answer for you. Comer & Cross in their summer installation sale, they're offering 12 months same as cash or $500 in savings. Why put it off? You can contact the number 248-834-3488. They transform patios, pool decks, basements, even driveways. They do it all. And the best part is they move the stuff out for you. They repair your cracks and pits before applying your stunning new floor, guaranteed. Comer & Cross concrete floors never chip, crack, or peel like epoxy or paint. Again, you could call the number 248-834-3488, or you can book your free estimate at comercross.com. Let's get back to the video. Well, Doc, we actually just previewed the ESPN Edge rankings, and I know Christian already put out an article explaining kind of how he dropped. We talked about it. We had some disagreements, kind of where me and Boone are chopping it up with the chat here. Chat felt like it was fair that he was 7th right now in the NFL. What do you think of him being 7th, even after the stretch that he was that dominant? And then what do you think about this upcoming season? And what do you think he gets to this upcoming season after dropping 1 ranking, according to executives, scouts, and coaches?
Yeah, look, I do think that when people start to rank, they kind of maybe take the injury into account, what he brings to the table. A lot of people look at overall sack totals, and there are times where there were lulls in sack production. But last year was the first year that he started to get sacks in bunches. And I do think he would have hit 20 sacks. He would have maybe set records. He would have been Defensive Player of the Year. I think he was that dialed in to showcase everything. That injury was horrible. I was there, and it sucked. It was a great Dallas trip all the way around. But as someone covering the team, it just was like, oh man, you just lost. Like in the end, I mean, I think I said it in some form or another. Like it's going to be hard to win a Super Bowl when you don't have your best player. And still, people that are that hang on Jared Goff's nuts were like, oh, the team's going to be just fine. They're still going to win a Super Bowl. Aidan's gone, no problem. To me, it was a simple, once Aidan went down, it was going to be tough to win the Super Bowl. And unfortunately, a lot of other guys went down too. So it made it super tough. And that's just my right now, that's my sole focus with the Lions. Win the darn Super Bowl. But I think Brad Holmes is accurate. You have one of the best 5 edge rushers truly in the National Football League. And this year he can cement himself as the best. I do think he's going to get, hopefully, I'm going to get a great look in a couple of weeks up close and personal to see how he looks against some great competition. And I think all throughout training camp, you're going to see a hungry guy, and you see the videos. I do think he's going to get double-digit sacks. And I'm wondering about that contract. I'm wondering, are the Lions going to make him prove it? Or is it one of those deals where Aidan's waiting for Trey Hendrickson and TJ Watt to sign first so he can leap them? So that trio not signed yet is crazy, because I think it's a holdup, because I think each one of them wants to set the market and they don't want to sign first only to have the next 2 guys leap them. So Aidan's due for a big payday. I do think Brad Holmes is right. You have one of the best 5 edge rushers in the game, and I just think it's going to be great to see him evolve. You got to remember too, under 25 years old is going to be somebody for the next probably 5 to 7 years, going to dominate a lot of offensive linemen. I think everybody's excited to see it. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Hopefully the catastrophic injuries are behind him, and you get a consistent double-digit sack guy that can be on one side of the football. And the question mark is going to be who's going to be the Batman who's going to be the Robin opposite of him.
I just want to bring up, Doc, another kind of piece of the defensive line, Alim McNeill. I know that another rankings, and these ESPN rankings are starting to come out every position group probably until next week. But Alim was just, I don't even know if he was honorable mention. I think it was just receiving votes in the defensive tackle ranking. And I had brought this up before, Doc, a couple months ago when we started the off season, was when Alim gets healthy, it feels like he has a lot to prove, in my opinion. Like he is one that, hey, you are one of the highest paid defensive tackles in the NFL. Personally, I don't think he's lived up to it, even close to it yet, because of the injuries and not being consistent. And so I do think he has a lot of pressure on him going into this year. What are your thoughts on that going into this season with Alim McNeill? Are you on the same kind of wavelength with that, or do you kind of feel like he's going to be just fine heading over the next few years of this contract?
Yeah, no, look, it stings because you're not going to see him for at least half the year, and you can't really assess the full capabilities because 2025 is going to be a year you get a decent amount of play from him, but 2027 will be the year, or excuse me, 2026 season, he'll come back fully healthy. So I saw an article where someone put him as the most overpaid defensive tackle, and I just think that that's a little bit disrespectful. First and foremost, he's great against the run. I think he's an emerging pass rusher and would benefit greatly from playing next to Tyreek Williams and DJ Reader. So I like the opportunity that he has when he's fully healthy. This year is going to be more of a transitional type year. You hope to get him back and ready to go by the postseason, but you're not going to get the 100% full force Alim McNeill, but he's a good football player. Well, look, the Lions, I do think, saw when they gave him the contract, they saw a player that was just, disruptive, that was very consistent against the run and was emerging as a pass rusher. So I think he also is becoming an emotional leader in that locker room. He's a good football player. You could argue and make the argument, okay, well, is he worth, guys that are defensive tackles that make that much money are double-digit sack kind of guys. But I think for what he does for the Detroit Lions defense, I think his flexibility and what he can do at different spots was definitely key. And first and foremost, they wanted guys that are disruptive against the run, and he was a big part of it. It sucked that he got hurt. That was a bad injury, and that was the one that was maybe even at the time a little bit more impactful to the overall goal of the season. You might have had a chance to get to the NFC title game if Alim McNeill stayed healthy.
Yeah, Doc, the big thing for training camp next week, and I think it's a storyline that we talked about briefly because Ennis Rakestraw popped up, and you've already stated that you think Ennis could shock some people. And I think it goes back into the Terran Arnold conversation, and someone brought it up in the chat the other day of like, could Ennis challenge Terran Arnold? Like this hypothetical scenario. How confident are you that we're going to see a much improved Terran Arnold? Because I think he could be, especially when you talk about this cornerback room and what they've been and kind of how much they've tried to improve it, kind of a big X factor. What do you want to see out of Terran Arnold going into this training camp for a big second year as a corner, first round pick?
Yeah, I want to see like what everybody else would want to see, what would translate to the regular season. I want to see him get his hands on the football, be disruptive, make plays against Amon-Ra and J-Mo, be somebody that's a little bit more, more fundamentally sound. Look, clearly, it's a tough position, but you're going up against the best of the best. And I do think iron does sharpen iron. Him going up against J-Mo, Amon-Ra, you're going to see some competitive periods at training camp that are, hopefully if you got a chance to get one of those coveted training camp tickets, you can go out there during some team periods and see some great competition. And I just think that Terran Arnold, second year, is going to be a lot more comfortable. The game's going to come to him a little bit more. And what I do like about him is that when you watch the film last year, when he did get beat, he did come back and continue to battle. He was thrown to the wolves, a guy that, played more press man coverage than a lot of other cornerbacks. And in this scheme, I think that playing opposite of Reed is really going to help him to potentially get some favorable matchups. And this year, I think the goal is going to be hopefully to get the over-under, I think I saw was 2.5 sacks. And Vito did a piece, and he's kind of thinking around, 50-50 chance that he gets 3 interceptions this year. I think he goes over it. I think he wants to showcase that he's a game changer. And I think this year, when you're more comfortable, I think that year 2 is, and for a lot of players, and I think for Tyrion specifically, the biggest leap happens after your first year. And I think this is the year he ends the year with 4 interceptions and maybe even a couple pick sixes to be able to score touchdowns. Yeah, I do think he's going to be he's going to want to kind of get into the end zone, get to be somebody that makes plays. You drafted him in the first round to be impactful. And I think he starts to make some of those plays, make some people say, oh, Terrion's a weapon, not just not just the guy opposite of Reed.
Hey, what about Ennis Rakestraw? Do you think, because I'm interested in that, we had the conversation a couple days ago that if Ennis stays healthy, we know what his ceiling is as a second-round pick. It kind of gets, it's a kind of good position to be in, but it does put the defense of Kelvin Shepherd in the spot trying to figure out who are their corners, who's going to be their slot corner when it comes to Amik. What do you think happens? Say Ennis Rakestraw comes out, has a very, very good camp, and has that year 2 jump that Dan Campbell talked about in the league meetings. How do you see that room kind of going about if Ennis ends up having that type of offseason?
Yeah, then against bigger bodied slot receivers, you have a chance to put them out there. I think that clearly the great competition will be with Amik, who will have a chance to do some things. And what's good is that the Lions don't like to specifically label their guys. There'll be some great competition. And if Ennis has an amazing training camp and is showcasing some things, he'll get an opportunity to up his opportunities to play in the slot. Maybe even some opportunities against different matchups to play on the outside. So I think that Ennis Rakestraw has the chance. It's going to be up to him. The first year was marred with injury. You didn't get to see a whole heck of a lot other than some small reps at special teams. And so I do think he wants to get out there and showcase what he's about. And this year, training camp will be definitely key. You got a chance to see a little bit in the offseason workouts, him competing against J-Mo. And he won some reps and also, took some pretty bad defeats. But at the same token, I like his competitiveness. I like his physicality. And I think that I do see opportunities for him to play more, but it's going to be tough because Amik's going to lock it down. He definitely is a competitor, and he's going to fight for every single rep. And Amik's in a contract year, so he's going to want to showcase to the Lions and to the rest of the league what he's about. So it's going to be tough, but that's just the best way to get the best out of Ennis Rakestraw is to have that competition. And I do think that early on, there's some comfort level with the top 4 defensive backs, and then you combine that with 2 of the best safeties in the league. It gives you a little bit of comfort, at least at the start of the training, at the start of training camp, that the defensive backs are going to be making some plays.
Doc, I'm going to ask you this. It's not even about Zadarius, but it's really just your confidence level because we're a week away from training camp. I know you mentioned there's probably a possibility that this man just completely fades training camp and just joins for the season. But we have Booner, one of the most confident people that Zadarius Smith will return. He's dropping confidence points recently. So I want to go to the DOC on this because you were pretty like, hey, doors open. But don't we kind of got to, like, as we get closer to training camp, at least wonder, like, maybe they just say, let's just roll with what we got. I feel like that's more of a possibility than we're talking about here, that the Lions just move on with who they have in the room.
Absolutely. And it's no guarantee that Zadarius comes back. He's north of 30. That's the age where people would go, well, and you also, it's going to depend on a couple things. Okay. I think the Lions have an option. I think that here's the difficulty is that Zadarius wants the bag. He wants the most money possible and probably, clearly wants to play for a competitive team. Now you hope that he doesn't go to the Bears. You hope Ben Johnson doesn't get in contact with Zadarius. You don't want to see that. You don't want to see him go to the Bills. You don't want to see him go to a contender. But here's the difficulty is that the Lions probably want to see what Ahmed Hassanin does, what Marcus Davenport does. They also have, and if you paid attention to any of my write-ups, they had a young guy that kind of showed out in Keith Cooper. And that's a young guy that's hungry and has a good motor and found himself in the backfield quite a bit. So you have other guys too. And so the Lions are weighing potentially how much development are we going to take away from some young guys that we want to kind of see a little bit more from. And, Zadarius is a guy that against the Commanders was one of the guys that was more productive than others, but it wasn't an all-world performance against Jaden Daniels, as evidenced by how easily when Daniels needed to make a play, he was the Lions didn't get home quick enough. And it was just too unfortunate when you go back and like an idiot, I've been watching that game to go, what the heck happened? And Jaden Daniels happened. That's what happened. A guy that came in hungry and he was executing on all fronts. And the Lions trenches was atrocious. The more you watch it, the more you go, oh my God, it was actually worse. The more you watch it, the offensive line and the defensive line didn't come close, but they didn't have exactly the pieces needed to go out there and win a playoff game. So look, I do think the door is open, but at the same token, as training camp progresses, if you start to see basically the guys there know, hey, our job is to keep Zadarius off this roster in regards to, hey, if Keith Cooper shines, if the rookie shows out, Marcus Davenport, El-Quadin Mohammed, other guys as well at the Sam linebacker spot, if you get some competition there, you realize, you know what? Their job is to say, hey, make the coaching staff keep Zadarius off this roster. But if he joins, it'll be a nice guy that you can add depth, and you can never have enough pass rushing help. So I would give it right now, truly, I'll be fair, 50-50 that he's on this roster at the start of the season.
What's going on with the Anzo stuff? Are you confident he's going to end up being at training camp? What are your thoughts on that whole situation with Alex Anzalone?
Yeah, I would, like I said, the way I've kind of approached it is it's business. I would be shocked if he held out. I think that he understands the importance of what this season is for the Detroit Lions. I think that, look, I mean, does he really need a training camp? No, he keeps himself in great shape. He understands his defense. I mean, his position coach is now the defensive coordinator, so he knows it inside and out. But at the same token, new installs, working with the team, I would be shocked if he decided to hold out, but I would be shocked too, potentially, if they don't give him a new deal. I think that it's just not that difficult to add one more year, add a little bit more money, and make them happy. Now, the question mark is going to be, is Alex going to take the Lions offer? Because I'm sure Alex's wants are higher than what the Lions want to pay. Alex probably is going to, hold firm at a number like 10, 11, and the Lions want to pay him 8, 9. Do they come to the middle? I think they probably figure it out. But at the same token, there'll be other deals maybe holding it up at the same time. So, but at the same time, I'm starting to wonder, is Brad Holmes a little bit shrewd with some guys that he starts to feel like are on their way out of the National Football League? I don't think like that with Alex, because he's productive. I don't see a dip in production. So I just think that keeping Alex Anzalone in 2025 and 2026, I think the two closest years that you're going to get to the Super Bowl are right now. Like, this is the closest you're going to get for a while. If you don't cash in this year or next year, it doesn't mean that in the coming years they're going to fall off the map. But I think that you start to overhaul some of the talent that you first brought in, and you continue to add young talent. So these 2 years, I would want Alex Anzalone on this football team. He'll be there, in my humble opinion. And I do think that chances are he should have a new deal to give him the best chance. I mean, you want a happy Alex Anzalone manning this defense and getting after the Detroit Lions offense during training camp.
Well, Doc, Allen Robinson's been on TV recently doing his, as some NFL media. More and more players hopping in, and Allen Robinson did his wide receiver duo ranking list, and he had J-Mo and Amon-Ra as the number one wide receiver duo in the NFL going into this upcoming season. How far off do you, if you agree, then you could say why you agree, but if you disagree, how far off is he? Do you think that's a crazy thing to say, or do you think realistically this year with J-Mo going to essentially kind of contract negotiations in the coming future that we see J-Mo take a massive step, and Amon-Ra is kind of the all-pro player. Now you're talking about these two being the best wide receiver duo in the league over T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and all these other players. What do you think?
Yeah, it's nice because, look, I didn't talk to Allen Robinson all that much last year, but I did overhear a lot of the conversations he was having with the media, as a lot of the reporters were getting in-depth, like, supplementary information from him. But I get to overhear just being around the locker room and see kind of how he talked. But you could always tell, very well-spoken, very energetic, very much a knowledgeable cat. And I just think that he's great for media. And so he's going to go out there and represent Detroit, a guy that was from the area. And so I think that he's got an inside knowledge. And look, yeah, it's going to be a little bit biased because he knows Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, but he also made some great points. He's like, you're not going to see too many guys get 1,000 yards receiving on less than 60 catches because of the deep threat option of Jameson Williams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is all world. And as a tandem, look, they're in the conversation with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and with the Eagles' offensive weapons. ESPN ranked the Lions' offensive weapons as a whole number 2 behind the Eagles, and Allen Robinson definitely is going to support the hometown guys. They're great. And it's tough because you recognize the sheer talent of Amon-Ra St. Brown and J-Mo, but you also don't want to disrespect T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They're pretty good too. So it's great to be in that conversation. And so in an offensive league, to be able to have guys that can support a quarterback that's not that mobile is great. And I do think the chemistry is building with Jameson Williams and Jared Goff. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the perfect glove for a pocket passer. And I just think big things are ahead for Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's a guy that's never going to be happy until he gets the ultimate goal, which is a championship. So that's a plus for Jared Goff, is that he's got two guys in Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown that he's got real good chemistry with. Jameson Williams is getting better. I hope it continues to grow, and J-Mo can have another 1,000-yard season and up his reception total, get used more in the offense. So it's a team that's plays to their strengths. And when you have guys like that are competitive, that want to go out there and be the best version of themselves, it lends to a good football team. And that's why you see that's why you saw last year one of the most prolific offenses is because of the caliber of the talent that's there on offense. It's great to see. And unless something wild happens, I think the biggest question marks for 2025 are going to be on defense. The offense is going to score a lot of points.
Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.